The sun had barely risen when the village square filled with murmurs and whispers. Birds sang in the distance, but their song did little to ease the tension that clung to the air. Among the small wooden houses and dusty paths, a young woman named Layla walked quietly, her head bowed. She had always been careful, polite, and kind, yet today, the villagers' eyes seemed colder, sharper, as if they carried judgment with every glance. Layla's hands trembled slightly as she approached the square. She had heard the rumors for weeks, soft whispers at the well, hushed conversations at the market, warnings from neighbors she once called friends. But she had never imagined the words would turn into action so quickly. They said she was barren, that she could not bear a child. And in this village, where generations of families lived by rigid traditions, such an accusation was more than shame. It was a crime. At the center of the square, the elders had gathered. Their faces were stern, lined with age and authority. Villagers encircled them, forming a wall of judgment and fear. Some looked curious, some angry, and a few, oddly, seemed almost eager to witness the punishment. Layla's heart pounded. She had never felt so small, so exposed. "Layla," one elder called, his voice cutting through the morning air. "Step forward. You have brought shame upon your family. Your womb bears no life, and our traditions demand justice." She swallowed hard, unable to speak. Her mind raced, trying to understand how kindness and care could have turned into accusations so cruel. She had helped every neighbor she could, tended to the sick, and even shared her small harvest with the village children, but none of that mattered now. None of her good deeds could erase what they saw as a failure. The crowd grew louder. Whispers became murmurs. Murmurs became angry shouts. "She is cursed," someone cried. "She brings dishonor." Another voice shouted, "The law must be followed." Layla felt tears prick her eyes. She looked around, hoping for someone, anyone, to step forward to speak for her. But faces were turned away, eyes averted. Even those she considered friends did not dare meet her gaze. Fear had silenced them all. An elder stepped closer, holding a thick rope in his hands. The wood of the gallows, old and worn, creaked as the weight of tradition pressed down on it. The villagers knew this place well. It had seen punishment before, and each mark in the wood was a story of shame, sorrow, and despair. Layla's stomach churned. She knew what awaited her, yet a part of her refused to believe it was real. "Layla," the elder said again, "you have one chance. Speak the truth. Confess your sins." I have done nothing wrong," Layla whispered, her voice trembling. "I have been kind. I have helped. Please, I'm not cursed." The elder shook his head slowly. "Kindness does not matter when tradition is broken. You cannot bear children, and the law is clear. Justice will be served." Panic rose in her chest. She had always trusted the world to be fair, to reward honesty and hard work, but now fairness was nowhere to be found. The villagers began to chant, a low, rhythmic call that pressed against her ears like a drum of doom. They wanted the punishment, demanded it, and fear gnawed at her heart. Suddenly a thought struck her. Maybe, somehow, someone would intervene. Her mind reached for hope, fragile as it was. Perhaps the village had a hidden kindness left. Perhaps someone, anyone, would see the truth and stop this madness. But as the rope was prepared and the gallows creaked under the weight of expectation, she realized that hope alone could not save her. Her knees weakened as she was forced onto the platform. The crowd pressed in, their faces now almost grotesque in their anger and curiosity. Layla's hands shook violently. She tried to steady her breath, tried to calm the pounding in her chest, but nothing worked. Every second stretched endlessly, the rope swinging slightly as if mocking her. "You will be hanged," the elder said, his voice steady, carrying the weight of authority. "Let this be a lesson to all who fail their duty to family and tradition." Layla closed her eyes. Memories flashed before her. The laughter of the children she had helped, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the soft glow of dawn over the fields she had tended with care. She wished for one more chance to prove herself, to show that a woman's worth was more than the life she could or could not bring into the world. The crowd was silent now, waiting for the final moment. Layla felt a strange calm descend over her. Perhaps it was resignation, or perhaps it was a fleeting spark of courage. She would not scream. She would not beg. She would meet this moment with whatever dignity she had left. Then, just as the elder moved to complete the punishment, a distant sound broke through the tense silence. A horse's hooves pounded against the earth, fast and urgent. The crowd stirred, confusion rippling through the villagers. Who could be coming at this hour? From the horizon emerged a figure, tall, strong, and riding with determination. It was a rancher, known in the neighboring lands for his courage and fairness. He had heard whispers of the village's cruelty, and though he had not expected to arrive in time, something inside him had driven him to act. "Stop," the rancher shouted, his voice carrying over the villagers' murmurs. "Step away from her. She is not guilty." The villagers froze. Some recognized him and hesitated, unsure whether to challenge a man with his reputation. Others whispered anxiously, the chants dying in their throats. The elder scowled but did not move immediately, unwilling to confront someone he knew commanded respect. Layla opened her eyes, barely believing what she saw. The man on the horse was not just a stranger, he was her lifeline. Her heart leapt, a flicker of hope igniting where despair had lived moments before. The rancher dismounted swiftly, approaching the platform with authority. "This punishment is wrong," he said firmly. "No woman should suffer for something she cannot control. Leave her be." For the first time, the villagers wavered. Doubt crept into their minds. Some stepped back while others exchanged uneasy glances. The elder tightened his grip on the rope, his face red with anger, but the rancher's presence was undeniable. Layla's body still shook, but inside, a small flame of courage began to grow. Maybe, just maybe, she would live to see another day. The rancher's eyes met hers, calm but strong. "Trust me," he said. And for the first time in hours, she felt a glimmer of hope that someone in this world believed in her. The rancher moved quickly, his boots kicking up dust as he reached the platform. He grabbed Layla's arm gently but firmly, helping her step down. Her legs trembled under her, and for a moment she feared she would collapse. But the rancher's steady grip and calm presence gave her strength she hadn't felt in hours. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice calm, steady, and kind. Layla shook her head, though her body quivered. "No, I think I'm okay. But what will they do?" The rancher's eyes hardened. "They won't touch you. Not while I'm here. Come." He motioned for her to follow, and she stumbled forward, each step shaky but determined. The villagers were still gathered, murmuring angrily, but the rancher's presence silenced many of them. Some dared to speak, but their voices faltered under his unwavering gaze. "You cannot stop me," the rancher said, addressing the crowd. "She has done nothing wrong. You have no right to punish her." The villagers hesitated. Some had feared the woman's fate would go unnoticed, but now, seeing the rancher's strength and determination, they were uncertain. Whispers spread quickly. This man was known for fairness and courage. Challenging him would bring trouble, not justice. Layla's heart pounded. She could hardly believe what was happening. Moments ago, she had been seconds from a punishment she could not escape. Now she was alive, walking away from the gallows. She felt a mix of relief, disbelief, and fear. She still didn't understand how quickly her world had shifted. The rancher led her to his horse. "You can ride with me," he said. "It's not far to my ranch. You'll be safe there." Layla hesitated. She had never been away from the village for long, and the thought of leaving everything she knew was frightening. But the fear of staying, the fear of being left in that square, was far greater. With a small nod, she stepped closer to the horse. As she climbed onto the saddle behind him, she held on tightly. The wind brushed against her face, carrying dust and the faint smell of wildflowers from the distant fields. For the first time that morning, she felt a sense of motion, a sense of leaving danger behind. The ride to the ranch was quiet at first. The rancher did not speak much, giving her time to collect her thoughts. Layla stared at the passing fields, her mind replaying the events of the day. It all seemed unreal. The shouting villagers, the rope, the gallows. She had never imagined a day like this could happen. Finally, the rancher spoke. "You're safe now," he said gently. "The village cannot touch you here. No one will harm you. You can rest, eat, and recover." Layla swallowed hard. Why are you helping me? You barely know me." The rancher glanced at her with a small, serious smile. "Because it's the right thing to do. No one deserves to be punished for something they cannot control. You didn't do anything wrong." His words warmed her, though her mind still struggled to trust them completely. People had always judged her harshly, even when she tried her best. To hear someone speak kindness and justice felt foreign, almost unbelievable. When they arrived at the ranch, Layla was stunned. The property was large, with wide green fields, wooden fences, and a small stable filled with horses. Smoke rose from the chimney of the main house, carrying the smell of freshly baked bread. The rancher led her inside, offering her a seat by the fire. "Sit," he said. "You need to rest. I'll get you something to eat." Layla sank into the chair, her body still trembling from the morning's events. She watched as the rancher moved around the kitchen, preparing a simple meal of bread, cheese, and warm tea. The smell made her stomach tighten, not from hunger but from the reality of comfort after fear. After a few moments, the rancher placed the plate and cup before her. "Eat," he said kindly. "You need strength." Layla nodded, picking up the bread with shaking hands. As she ate slowly, she noticed the rancher watching her not with suspicion but with quiet concern. She had never met anyone like him, someone who judged her not by gossip or rumor but by her humanity. After she finished, the rancher sat across from her. "Rest now," he said. "You've been through a lot. I'll make sure no one comes near you. The village will calm down eventually, and then we can think about what comes next." Layla nodded again, feeling tears sting her eyes. She felt safe for the first time in hours. Maybe for the first time she could allow herself to hope. Days passed at the ranch, and with each day Layla felt a little stronger. The rancher provided clothes, warm meals, and gentle care. He introduced her to the ranch hands, all kind and respectful, who treated her like family rather than a victim. Slowly her fear began to fade. At night she would sit by the window staring at the stars. She thought about her village, about the rope and the gallows, and she realized that she had survived something that could have ended her life. The memory still made her shiver, but it also gave her a strange sense of strength. She had faced the worst, and she had lived. One evening, as she rested by the fire, the rancher asked gently, "How are you feeling?" Layla paused. I think I am starting to feel safe," she admitted. "But I still feel afraid that it could happen again." The rancher nodded. "It won't happen again. I promise you. Here you are protected, and I'll make sure the village cannot hurt you." Layla's heart swelled with gratitude. She had never known such protection, such care. The rancher's promise felt solid, like a shield against the world's cruelty. And in that moment she realized something important. She was not alone. She had someone who would stand with her no matter what. As the nights passed, Layla began to speak more, sharing her story in small pieces. She told the rancher about her life in the village, the whispers, the judgment, and the moment she was almost hanged. The rancher listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging, and when she finished, he simply said, "You are brave, and you did nothing wrong." Those words became a lifeline for Layla. She began to believe that maybe, just maybe, life could be different, that fear did not have to define her. That hope was not gone. Little did she know, her life was about to change again. This time in a way neither she nor the rancher could have expected. Something hidden, a secret she carried unknowingly, would soon turn the world upside down once more. But for now, in the quiet safety of the ranch, Layla allowed herself to breathe, to rest, and to begin healing. The shadows of the gallows still lingered in her mind, but the warmth of safety, care, and protection began to push them away. And as she drifted to sleep that night, she felt, for the first time in a long while, a small, fragile sense of hope. Days turned into weeks at the ranch, and Layla slowly began to feel a sense of normalcy returning to her life. The mornings were filled with sunlight streaming through the wooden windows, and she would sit on the porch, watching the horses graze in the fields. Each day her body felt stronger, and her mind felt a little calmer. The terror of the village, the rope, and the gallows still lingered, but with the rancher's protection, it became a memory rather than a present threat. The rancher, whose name was Elias, continued to treat her with kindness and respect. He never pressed her for explanations, never judged her for the accusations she had endured. Instead, he gave her space to heal while quietly ensuring she was safe, comfortable, and cared for. One morning, while Layla was tending to a small garden Elias had shown her, she felt a strange weariness. It was different from ordinary tiredness. Her stomach churned and she felt lightheaded. She paused, pressing a hand to her chest, unsure what was happening. Elias noticed immediately. "Layla, are you all right?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I feel strange," she admitted, her voice small. "Maybe it's nothing, just tiredness," Elias frowned. "Let me help. Sit down." He guided her to a shaded bench nearby, offering her a glass of water. As she drank slowly, her mind raced. She had felt strange symptoms before but had dismissed them. Now the thought that had never crossed her mind took root. Could she be pregnant? The idea terrified her. She had been through so much already, almost losing her life at the gallows. Now the possibility of carrying a child, something she had feared might never happen, filled her with a mixture of fear, wonder, and disbelief. "Layla," Elias said gently, reading the confusion on her face. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You are not alone." The reassurance warmed her. She trusted him more than anyone she had ever known, and for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that maybe this new development could be a sign of something positive in her life. A few days later, Layla confided in Elias, her hands trembling as she spoke. I think I might be pregnant," she said softly, almost afraid to hear the words. Elias's eyes widened slightly, but there was no judgment, no shock that could harm her. Instead, he nodded, a serious, calm expression on his face. "Then we will take care of you. You are safe here, and I will protect you." The revelation changed everything. Layla felt a sense of relief mixed with awe. Despite everything that had happened, despite the cruelty of her village, life had given her a new chance, a new beginning. And with Elias by her side, she felt she could face whatever came next. As days passed, Elias helped her prepare for the changes ahead. He arranged a small room for her with a comfortable bed, soft blankets, and warm sunlight pouring through the window. He taught her how to care for herself, how to rest, and how to eat nourishing meals. Slowly, Layla began to regain not only her strength but also her confidence. One afternoon, as she sat stitching a small quilt, she noticed the ranch hands glancing at her with curiosity. They had known her only as the woman who had been rescued from the village, and now, with her pregnancy, they treated her with a mixture of respect and awe. Layla realized that life at the ranch was different from the village. Not everyone judged harshly. Not everyone demanded conformity to unfair traditions. Here she could simply exist and grow. Elias noticed her thoughtful expression. "You're thinking about them, aren't you?" he asked gently. Layla nodded. I keep thinking about my village, about what they would say if they knew, about how they treated me." Elias sighed softly. "They don't matter anymore, Layla. Their words, their judgment, it cannot touch you here. You are protected and you are strong. Nothing they say can change that." Layla felt tears welling in her eyes. For so long she had been weighed down by fear, shame, and judgment. Now she felt a lightness she had not known before. She had survived the worst, and she was carrying new life inside her. She was, in her own way, powerful. A few weeks later, Elias accompanied her to a nearby town for a medical checkup. The doctor confirmed what Layla already suspected. She was indeed pregnant. Hearing the words aloud made the reality sink in, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to smile without fear. On the ride back to the ranch, she sat quietly, holding her stomach and feeling a mixture of awe and wonder. Elias glanced at her occasionally, his expression gentle and protective. "You'll be a good mother," he said softly. Layla shook her head, laughing nervously. "I don't know. I've been through so much. How can I?" Elias placed a hand over hers. "You've been through everything and survived. That makes you stronger than anyone I know. And you won't be alone. I will be here every step of the way." The days that followed were filled with a new rhythm. Layla learned to care for herself, to rest when she needed, and to embrace the new life growing inside her. The ranch became a sanctuary, a place of healing, hope, and unexpected joy. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Layla stood by the fence, watching the horses graze. She felt a flutter in her stomach, a tiny reminder of the life she carried. She smiled softly, thinking of the future and of the baby she would soon meet. Elias joined her silently, standing close but giving her space. After a few moments he spoke, his voice low and steady. "You are brave, Layla. Life has tested you in ways no one should endure, and yet you keep moving forward." Layla turned to him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I wouldn't have survived without you," she admitted. "You didn't just survive," Elias said firmly. "You are thriving. And now with this new life, everything is different. You have a second chance, a chance to live free, to live strong, and to be happy." Layla felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet happiness she had never known. The village, the rope, the shame, all of it seemed distant now, like a shadow she had left behind. She was alive, protected, and carrying life inside her. and she knew deep in her heart that this time, nothing could take that away. That night, as she lay in the soft bed Elias had prepared for her, Layla allowed herself to dream, not of fear, punishment, or judgment, but of hope, family, and a future she could build from scratch. A life full of love, care, and safety awaited her. And in that quiet, peaceful night, a new chapter of her life quietly began, one filled with promise and the unshakable strength of a woman who had survived the worst and discovered hope in the most unexpected. The news of Layla's pregnancy traveled faster than the wind. Somehow the villagers had heard that she had survived the gallows and that she was carrying life within her. The whispers returned, but this time they were sharper, filled with suspicion and disbelief. Some murmured about deception, others questioned the legitimacy of the child. Even though she was far from the village, Layla felt the tension in the air, as if the shadow of judgment still followed her. Elias noticed her unease. One morning while they were walking along the ranch fence, she stopped abruptly, staring at the distant hills. "They know," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, but the fear in it was clear. Elias placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Let them know what they want," he said calmly. "Here, you are safe. I will not let anyone harm you." Layla nodded, but the fear did not leave entirely. Memories of the rope and the gallows were still vivid, and she knew that words alone from a stranger would not erase years of rigid, cruel tradition. It wasn't long before a few villagers appeared at the edge of the ranch, a small group of men and women daring to confront her. They stood at a distance, shouting accusations, questioning the pregnancy and trying to shame her. "How can we trust you?" one man shouted.
"How do we know this child is yours?"
Layla froze for a moment, her heart racing. The words stung, but this time she did not feel powerless. She looked toward Elias, who stood firmly behind her, unwavering and protective. His presence gave her strength. "You have no right to speak to her this way," Elias said, his voice firm, cutting through the villagers' shouts. "She is under my protection. Step onto my land and you will face consequences." The villagers hesitated. Some had seen Elias's courage and knew he would defend her, but a few continued to shout, desperate to reclaim the control they had lost. Layla felt her own courage growing. She remembered the terror of the gallows and the hopelessness she had felt. Now she realized that she had survived that moment, and she would not let fear control her life again. She straightened her back and lifted her chin. "I am not your property," she said clearly. "I am not cursed. I am alive and I am carrying life inside me. You have no right to judge me." The villagers were momentarily silent, shocked by her strength. They had expected fear, submission, maybe tears, but not this quiet courage that seemed to radiate from her very being. Elias stepped closer to her, placing a protective hand near hers. "Let her speak for herself," he said. "She has lived through more than you can imagine, and she will continue to live no matter what you say." The confrontation lasted only a few more minutes. Realizing they could not overpower Elias or intimidate Layla, the villagers finally backed away, muttering under their breath. They left, but the tension lingered. Layla knew that their judgment would not disappear overnight. Some in the village would always question her, always whisper. That evening, as she sat on the porch, Elias joined her silently. They watched the sunset together, the sky painted with shades of orange and pink. "You were incredible today," he said softly. "You stood up to them. You didn't let fear control you." Layla shook her head. "I was scared," she admitted. "But I realized I can't live in fear anymore. I survived the worst and now I have a reason to be strong." Elias smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "You are stronger than you know, and this child will be lucky to have a mother like you." The next days brought a quiet calm to the ranch. Layla continued her recovery, and her strength grew along with the life inside her. She learned to trust herself and her instincts, guided gently by Elias's care and encouragement. Yet, the village could not let her go entirely. Occasionally travelers or merchants would bring snippets of news, hints that some villagers still questioned, still whispered about her. Layla felt the sting of old fears, but each time, she reminded herself of the ranch, of Elias, and of the safety she now had. One afternoon, Elias suggested a walk to the river that ran behind the ranch. The sound of flowing water, the rustling leaves, and the warm sunlight brought a sense of peace. Layla felt lighter than she had in months. The world outside the ranch's fences felt less threatening, less judgmental. As they reached the riverbank, Elias stopped and looked at her with a serious expression. "You know, some people will never accept change," he said gently. "They will cling to old rules, old traditions. But you can create your own life. You don't need their approval." Layla looked down at her growing belly and smiled faintly. "I never imagined life could be like this," she said. "Safe, peaceful, hopeful." Elias nodded. "And it will continue to be. As long as we stand together, nothing can take that from you." Over time, the villagers began to understand, slowly but surely, that Layla was no longer the powerless woman they had judged. Her pregnancy, her survival, and the support she had gained from Elias transformed her story from one of shame to one of courage. Even those who once doubted her began to respect the strength she had shown. Layla herself changed. She no longer feared judgment, no longer felt shame for circumstances beyond her control. She embraced her life, her protection at the ranch, and the new life growing within her. Every kick, every flutter from the child reminded her that she had survived and that she had a future worth living. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Layla and Elias sat by the porch, watching the sky turn deep shades of purple and gold. "I never thought I'd feel this safe," she said quietly. Elias took her hand gently. "You earned it," he said simply. "You survived the worst. You found strength when none seemed possible, and now you have everything to live for." Layla rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a warmth she had never known. The fear of the gallows, the whispers of the village, and the judgment that had once consumed her life felt distant, like shadows fading with the light of a new day. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond fear, a life of safety, love, and hope. The village might always hold memories of pain, but the ranch, Elias, and the child she carried represented a new beginning, one built on courage and care rather than judgment and cruelty. And as the night settled over the fields, Layla felt something she had not felt in a long time: peace. Months passed at the ranch, and with each passing day, Layla grew stronger, calmer, and more confident. Her body changed with the life she carried, and she learned to embrace the new rhythms of pregnancy. The fear and trauma of the gallows seemed distant now, replaced by quiet joy, care, and the steady presence of Elias, who had become her protector, companion, and friend. Word from the village continued to trickle in, but it was different now. Whispers of doubt and judgment gradually turned into awe and curiosity. The villagers who had once condemned her began to see her in a new light. Her survival, her courage, and the child she carried had changed the story. They could no longer ignore the truth. One morning, a small group of villagers approached the ranch, not with anger, but with hesitation. They came to speak, to understand, to apologize. The moment was tense. Layla felt her old fear rising, but she steadied herself, remembering how far she had come. Elias stood by her side, calm and unwavering. "They've come to speak," he said gently. "You can choose to listen, or not." Layla took a deep breath. She had once been powerless, but now she realized that her strength came from within. "Let them speak," she said quietly. The villagers stepped forward cautiously. One elder, the same who had condemned her months ago, bowed his head. "Layla," he said slowly, "we were wrong. We judged you unfairly. We see now that you are not cursed. You are strong and we owe you respect." Layla's heart beat fast. She had never expected an apology, and yet here it was. Words that carried the weight of the village's recognition and acceptance. She nodded, acknowledging them without anger. "Thank you," she said softly. "I only wish we had treated each other with understanding from the start." The villagers murmured in agreement. Some bowed slightly. Others offered small gestures of respect. It was not complete reconciliation, but it was enough. Enough to mark a turning point. A new chapter where judgment no longer dictated her life. As the visitors left, Layla turned to Elias, her eyes shining. "It's over, isn't it?" she asked. Elias smiled. "It is over. And now the life you carry will be the beginning of something new." The final months of her pregnancy passed quietly, filled with care, love, and preparation. Layla and Elias worked together to ready the ranch for the arrival of the child, gathering blankets, clothing, and toys. Every small task brought them closer, their bond deepening in ways neither had expected. Finally, the day came. Layla awoke in the early hours of the morning, the first rays of sunlight spilling across the ranch. Pain and anticipation mingled in her chest, but she felt calm, supported, and ready. Elias was by her side, guiding her through each moment with steady hands and reassuring words. Hours later, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Layla held the baby close, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her own. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered softly, "You are safe. You are loved." Elias watched, his own eyes glistening. "You've done it," he said. "You brought life into the world and nothing can take that from you." The ranch became a place of joy and celebration. Neighbors from the surrounding area visited, offering gifts and congratulations. Layla, once judged and condemned, now felt the warmth of community, acceptance, and respect. She had survived the worst, found love and protection, and now held the greatest gift of all in her arms. In the following weeks, the village slowly came to understand the change. The story of Layla's survival, her courage, and the child she carried spread beyond their boundaries. People began to question the old ways, to reflect on the injustice they had once accepted. Layla had become more than a survivor. She had become a symbol of strength, resilience, and hope. Layla's own life transformed. She no longer feared judgment, no longer felt shame for something she could not control. Each day was filled with purpose, love, and the quiet happiness of family. Elias remained by her side not as a savior, but as a partner and companion, sharing in every challenge and joy. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Layla sat on the porch with her child in her arms. The world felt peaceful, safe, and full of possibility. She glanced at Elias, who was tending to the horses nearby, and smiled. "We made it," she whispered. Elias looked up and returned her smile. "We did. And now your life and our lives can be what we choose it to be." Layla felt a sense of quiet triumph. She had faced the cruelty of judgment, the threat of death, and the fear of helplessness. She had survived, she had loved, and now she had a new beginning. The village's cruelty could no longer define her. She was free, strong, and ready to live life on her own terms. As night fell over the ranch, Layla placed her child in a small cradle nearby and sat by the window, watching the stars twinkle above the fields. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, the quiet promise of tomorrow, and the knowledge that she had endured the impossible and come out stronger. Her story, once marked by fear and punishment, had become a story of courage, protection, and new life. And as she drifted into a peaceful sleep, she knew that the future held hope, love, and endless possibility for herself, for her child, and for the life she had fought so hard to reclaim. Layla had survived the gallows. She had survived judgment. And now she was free.